And it's Josh Sexton for the Amphitheatre Rap, and I'm joined today by a special guest in Kamal Jasmuth, who, so for context, listeners of the Amphitheatre Rap for a long time, or long-time readers of the Amphitheatre Rap, may remember a name called Roy Henderson. Roy sort of originated from Rourke, and Rourke has been a big part of the Amphitheatre Rap in terms of its inception, in terms of, a bit of word of mouth and things like that down the years. Andy Heaton was a big player on Rourke back in the day. Still keeps his oar in whenever he can. But was always sort of active on the forum there. I probably should say Red and White Cop is the forum that we all call Rourke. You'd have heard us referring to it on the Amphitheatre Rap. And so Roy reached out to me and said that there was this guy called Kamal who was joining me today, who is one of the old writers on Rourke. He's trying to raise money for surgery as he's suffering from a spinal condition. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that today, and a little bit about Kamal, and get a little bit more about your story. But first and foremost, Kamal, thank you very much for joining us on the Amphitheatre Rap.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the support.
And so, listeners with a keen ear may have heard there that you've got a South African accent. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing in South Africa, and particularly, how you came to be a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, so I was born in South Africa. My dad was born in South Africa as well, during the apartheid regime as well. So I grew up during the apartheid regime, maybe towards the latter end of it. How I became a Liverpool supporter, my dad was a Liverpool supporter as well growing up. He spent some time in the UK, I think in the late 50s, early 60s. He was a Liverpool supporter as well. But I remember we'd get highlights of the local games, and I remember watching John Barnes, and I was like, yeah, this is the team.
And
He was, yeah, come on, sorry.
so I was just going to say, like, what encouraged you then, as a Red, and as you're sort of going through your life as a Liverpool supporter, to get involved in Red and White Cop in those early days?
Yeah, so I mean, as a local sport, especially in South Africa, you don't, you only get to interact with people in South Africa back then because there's no internet that time. And once the internet started growing and stuff, forums were a big thing. So I joined Rock Red and White Cop in, I think, the early 2000s, around 2003, and just to have a community to interact with people from all over, basically talking about football and talking about Liverpool. I mean, it was quite enjoyable. I made a lot of close friends, even though it's online. You get to interact with people. You get to form like really, really good relationships. And I did whatever writing I could for on the forum as well, on various topics, football and also non-football related as well.
And so, have you had chance to follow in your dad's footsteps of getting yourself over to Liverpool and to Anfield? Then, is that something you've been able to experience?
Yeah, I was. I went to Liverpool in 2000 and I was 2009, I think. Yeah,
Right.
it was my first time ever. I went to watch. It was the Champions League game versus Real Madrid, the 4-0.
Oh.
Yeah, and after that, United the 5-1
Amazing.
at Old Trafford. Yeah, it was my first games, and everybody just kept on messaging me. It's like, "No, you're good luck. Don't come back." So yeah, it was. I spent everything I had at the time just to go and to watch Liverpool. It was probably one of the best experiences of my life. I fell in love with the city at the time as well. Liverpool. It was incredible.
Yeah, and you've referenced that your dad is a Red too, and there's obviously been, a sort of complications in the relationship there down the years. Can you tell us a little bit more about your story with your dad, and the things that he went through, especially as you mentioned, growing up in the apartheid regime?
Yeah. So my dad, well, he was born in South Africa as well, and originally my grandparents were from India. They came over to South Africa in the early, I think, 20s. And my dad was born in 1938. And growing up in the apartheid area, I don't know how much you know, but for anyone with darker skin, it was a nightmare. So around 17, he was sort of recruited to become, become an activist. He got a lot of it from my grandfather as well, who was an activist in India during the British rule of India. So, like my grandfather marched with Gandhi as well in India, and then my dad in South Africa started becoming more active in the political struggle for freedom in South Africa from the age of 17. He was arrested at 17 as well. And then as he grew up, he started spending more and more time trying to fight for the freedom of South African people. He was one of the first freedom fighters to be sentenced to Robben Island prison before even Nelson Mandela for 10 years. And after that, he got released in 19. He was arrested in 1963, and he was released in 1973. And in prison, that type of prison, especially for a person with dark skin, it was the most torturous environment you could ever imagine. They didn't have a bed. There's no beds. They had one small blanket in a small cell. They showered with only cold water, no hot water either, and they were beaten and tortured, and it is as much as you can even imagine. He was released in 1973. During that time, after he was released, he was still very active in the struggle, and he fought as much as he could. There's also, I don't know if you've heard of the book Escape from Pretoria. There's a movie also with it with Elijah Wood. So it's based on a true story of the prisoner that escaped from Pretoria prison. And my dad was involved in the aftermath of that escape, having trying to get one of the escapees over the border. And what happened was he managed to get the escapee over the border, but because of he was still under house arrest for a certain period, he had to check into the police station all the time. And when he went for one of his check-ins, he heard the police talking about this prison escape, and he thought they knew that he was involved. And the face on his face, they immediately seen his reaction on his face, and they knew, okay, this guy has something to do. So then they started torturing him severely. They beat him up. They electrocuted him until he divulged what had happened. And because of that, he was sentenced to prison again for a 1 year suspended sentence. He managed to get a reduced sentence because when he went to the doctor, he hid all the scars that he had from the torture and only showed it to the doctor, not to the police officers and the warden. So when the doctors seen it, they used that as evidence of torture in the courts, and the courts gave him a reduced sentence. And then he was released in 1983, just a couple of years after I was born.
Yeah, and that's obviously an incredible story from his side of things. And then you sent me a little document beforehand for sort of context for the listeners. So I'm sort of going off little bits of that. But then there was a sort of period where he was, of course, suffering from extreme PTSD from everything
Yeah.
he'd been through, and that was when you sort of took a big decision, which I'll leave you to talk about.
Yeah. So what happened was as I started growing up, I mean, it was just my dad and I. My mom passed away when I was very little, and he brought me up during that time. He did the best he could as a single parent. But as I started getting older, because of my physical condition, basically I have cerebral palsy, but I was misdiagnosed as a child. So as a child, the surgeons told my dad, well, my parents, that my condition was just a physical condition that can be fixed through therapy. So growing up, I've, carried on going to therapy, doing whatever therapy I needed, but there was no improvement. In fact, I was getting worse as I got older. And during my 30s, I started regressing even faster. Like my mobility was decreased. I was like, I'd always fall a lot because with cerebral palsy, what it does, it affects your mobility. It causes spasticity throughout your body, which means that like all my muscles are permanently in a contracted state. So, which makes movement almost impossible. Um, and during my 30s, I noticed it started getting worse. And around that same period, I noticed my dad would wake up in the middle of the night screaming. And what it was sort of like a delayed PTSD from all the torture he experienced in prison and outside of prison, all the beatings he took. And so I decided that because I was getting worse and my dad was getting worse, it was just the two of us. I needed to do something drastic to try and improve my physicality, to improve my health so that I could look after him. And so I decided to go to the East, China and India for therapy and training and whatever for a year to try and improve my health as best as I could. Because firstly, it was more affordable than in the East than in South Africa. And there were specialists that could help me with certain things. So I made the decision in about 2016, end of 2015, beginning of 2016. I left for China. I decided to go for a full year because I thought, okay, I have my condition is just a physical condition. I can go spend a year, improve my health and my physicality, and then come back and I can look after him. My biggest fear leaving was that, leaving my dad alone. But I figured, while he was still capable, 1 year, it should be okay. But then 3 months into my stay in China, my worst fear came to pass. My dad passed away. It was the worst thing you could ever imagine. Imagine having your worst fear come to life. It broke me considerably. I couldn't handle it because all my life he was like my mother, he was my father, my best friend, all in one, all rolled into one. And then I um, I decided I came back from China for the funeral and to deal with all the stuff that needed to be dealt with. Buried my father. I was alone, um, losing everything. I don't know if and many people can imagine losing everything in such a short space of time. But I came back. I dealt with whatever needed to be dealt with. I don't know if I ever. Well, I don't know if you ever accept losing a parent like that. Especially, you start thinking, if I was there, what could I have done to stop it from happening? I know logically you shouldn't be thinking that, but it's always on your mind. Um, so yeah, and then I was in South Africa for about 8, 9 months, trying to just wrap my head around stuff, and then eventually, because I hadn't finished all my training in the East, I decided to go back. I mean, I had already lost everything. I had nothing left to lose. So I might as well try to improve my health. And so I went back to China. I trained as hard as I could, as much as I could. Where I was training like 6 hours a day. And then after China, I went to India for there was different types of yoga therapy that I thought could benefit me. So I went to India as well, and it was only in India where I met with my aunt, first time meeting her as well, and she was a physiotherapist. And she sent me to a specialist, and the specialist, right upon seeing me, first thing she said, no, it's not a physical condition, and you have cerebral palsy. And I was like, no, you're wrong. I mean, I've been to so many doctors throughout my entire life, and not a single one even suggested that it's cerebral palsy. And cerebral palsy is an incurable condition. Trying to wrap my head around something like that after spending so much time to improve my health and my physicality. Um, yeah, and then I seen her. I went to an orthopedic surgeon, neurologist, and each of them confirmed that it's cerebral palsy. And none of them could fathom how any of the doctors growing up didn't pick it up. They say it's like you don't have to do any tests, it's visible just from seeing you. The thing with cerebral palsy, like if you look at me now, it looks like there's nothing wrong with me. But as soon as I move, then it's yeah, like I can't even straighten my hands. My legs don't bend properly. I trip over everything. I can trip over my own 2 feet while walking. So falling is a constant thing for myself. But yeah, so then after finding out that condition, I mean, I lost my dad, I lost my home, I lost everything. I went back to try and improve my health, only to find out that I have an incurable condition. I don't know. It's it's a lot for someone to take. I went through a lot of depression. I'm still going through it as well. It's I don't know. I don't know if I've accepted it, but I still want to try to find a way to improve my health at least a bit. Then I found out about this surgery. It's called selective dorsal rhizotomy. So basically, it's a spinal surgery, and it's the only type of surgery that it can't cure the condition, but it eliminates the spasticity within my body. So which gives me a little bit more freedom of movement, which means I can better take care of myself. Um, the surgery, no, there's maybe a handful of surgeons in the world that can perform the surgery on adults, because a lot of the surgery is performed mainly on children, because adults, there's obviously comes with a more risk. So I've contacted a couple of neurosurgeons in Europe and in the US, and the goal is to get the surgery just so that I just want, I just want to be a little bit healthier so that I can look after myself. I don't want to have to be constantly worried about, oh no, if I'm going to trip and fall and hit my head and there's nothing I can do, I'm just laying there. And it's happened before. I've literally fallen, knocked the back of my head on a door handle, and I was alone. There was nothing I could do. I had to take an Uber to the hospital because I had no one to take me. And this is with possibly a concussion, severe vertigo, and then the doctors checked me up, and then had to take an Uber back. So I mean, having to deal with all of these things on your own while you can't move. And as I'm getting older, it's getting worse and worse. I mean, they say with cerebral palsy that it's possible that I could even lose my ability to walk completely. Being alone and not being able to look after yourself, yeah, I don't want to be able, I don't want to reach that point. The surgery will give me, it's not going to fix everything, but it gives me that ability to be able to take care of myself for at least a little while longer. So the goal, I found out about surgery. The surgery is incredibly costly. It's 50,000 US dollars just for the surgery. And then obviously I have to focus on the rehab. The rehab, in some ways, is more important than the surgery, because the rehab dictates how much we improve. Because I have to relearn how to walk, how to move, how to sit. I have to build muscle there's never been any muscle there before. So I have to find a way to strengthen. And then I won't be able to work. So I have to live and do everything because I'm alone. I have to do everything on my own while doing rehab. So yeah, that's why I started up this fundraiser. A friend of mine's in the UK, they persuaded me to start up this fundraiser to say, you know what, you can't do this on your own. You have to find a way to get others to help you to do it. And right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm just, asking people for help.
Yeah, and so I believe I'm right in thinking that you started this fundraiser in August 2021. So this has been, a long-term
Yeah,
process already. We're talking nearly 3 years at the time of recording this. You've raised just over £31,000 so far. But as you say, the cost of the surgery is 50,000 US dollars. So it would be good if people listening to this incredible story and absolute admiration for your strength throughout all of that as well, Kamal. You mentioned
thanks.
the losing your mother, losing your father, and then also finding out about this misdiagnosis, which has impacted you for your entire life. I'll make sure the link for the GoFundMe is down in the description as well. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Kamal, before we wrap this up.
No, I mean, I just, yeah, I mean, any help that I can get, I would be like, I'd be so grateful for it. I mean, literally, this thing would literally change my life. Even without the rehab, just the surgery alone changes everything in my life. And I can't state how important that is for me and how beneficial it would be. So, I mean, whoever's listening, I would be so eternally grateful for all your help.
Yeah,
Doing this on my own, I can't do it on my own.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on, Kamal. And as I say, thank you for your strength and resilience in the face of all those trials and tribulations as well. And as I say, listen, I know times are tough and it's hard for people to be putting money aside for these sorts of things. But if you do have the money to give, I'll make sure that the link for the GoFundMe is down in the description. Please give whatever you can to support Kamal's cause, a huge red, someone who was, fundamental in one of the, probably the biggest Liverpool fan forum, and a forum that's meant a lot to the Anfield Rap down the years as well. And thank you very much for coming on, Kamal. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your support as well. I'm grateful.